Raphael.
So thank you very much for this very awesome introduction and yeah, for your support. And so let's start a little bit. I have a lot of content, so I start. Okay, welcome to the next session of Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. If you are here in the session and you are waiting for Microsoft Teams compliance deep dive, you are in the right session. If you are watching, for example, for the SharePoint sessions, then switch to another session and to another mile. So, my name is Raphael Koellner. I will introduce myself a little bit later. At first, some more important information. I hope you'll see these slides. I skip it. It will come. These slides a little bit before. So the Microsoft collaboration conference will be start in March next year in Las Vegas. I hope it's not too hot there. We have a lot of sponsors here, so thank you very much. For example, for AvePoint, Afima, Paintfire, Valo, Intranet, CoreView, Persistent, and all of these Swoop and Citrus Soft and all of this. So thank you very much to make this conference possible. And introduce myself a little bit. That's a short version, and then we have a little bit longer version. My name is Raphael Koellner. I'm executive consultant at BDO in Germany. I'm sitting and living in Cologne. I'm one of the 12 Microsoft regional directors of the Microsoft Virtual Marathon, Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon, and I'm also one of the MVPs from Office Apps and Services and also Windows 10. And I love these conferences because I'm a community guy. I founded the Azure and the Office 365 community here in Germany, and we meet us in every week and every month. So we have a lot of community meetings today. And I'm also an international speaker on Ignite, on Build, and will be a speaker on Inspire next time. So also one of the virtual conferences, and I have a podcast. So yeah, from Cologne into the world. Hello, we have 9 o'clock in the evening, and now it's the right time to speak about Microsoft Teams and compliance. And one more, please attend this raffle. You have now 10 seconds to make a screenshot or copy the bit.ly slash M365 raffle link. And please join the raffle and fulfill the questions and all of this. Last thing, please donate. And this is a slide here for the International Medical Corps. And this is a great initiative. I have a look at the website, so very great thing. So this is a little bit advertising at the beginning, and now we will start with the topic and a little bit more introduction. So you are here, right? If you are loving Microsoft Teams, and if you want to start with Microsoft Teams, or you start with Microsoft Teams in the last years and have a look at it a little bit deeper. So compliance is an overall view of security and compliance and data privacy and data security. So why I'm here? As you saw my little introduction slide, this is a little bit more with some more icons at the end. So you see I'm the community guy. If you want to hear the podcast or be a part of Azure United, you can have a look at the websites. And for the most of you are important, thank you for a lot of emails. So that's the right thing. Send me an email if you have a question. I will answer, and I can't answer in one day. So please give me 3 days, then you get an answer. So 1 to 3 days, you will get an answer. A little bit faster is via Twitter. You can send me little questions via Twitter. I will answer, or have a look at my blog posts and my blog to see and learn more about compliance, security, IT security, and all of this. So last thing, let's start. One of my favorite slides is this one at the beginning for a little bit introduction. The only stability is a regular change. So this is also for the compliance topic, not only for Microsoft Teams itself. For example, we have new features every month. We have some new functionality every week. For example, with the custom backgrounds, but we have also some in the same area a lot of more and new compliance features for Microsoft Teams, and some newer features like privacy channels. We have to wait 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and then the compliance features also will work for these new features like privacy channel. So that's one of the things we will talk today, and we will talk also about all of these news, what will come a little bit. I have some roadmap informations, and how you can make Microsoft Teams in these terrible and crazy times like COVID pandemic a little bit safer and use it in a compliance way. So one of the most important things is we have a lot of data everywhere, and we have more and more data because in Microsoft Teams, for example, you can chat now. It's easier than to send emails. So we have chats, we have Giphies, we have memes, we have a lot of documents in different areas. Maybe we have also third-party applications like Box or Citrix ones for our storage systems, and we have on-prem storage systems, and we have a lot of data around, maybe in other applications like Facebook, like SAP, or like this. So this is a challenge for the Office 365 compliance. And for me, Microsoft Teams, to centralize all the data to SharePoint and maybe to one third party like Citrix files. So we have more and more data in the same storage system, and we centralize also the data. So for me, and as a compliance guy, I like that we don't send so much emails with copies of data. So we only send, and this is the first thing, please only send sharing links to other guys and also to externals. Don't produce any copies of your files. Please store your file and then send only sharing links. So that is the first hint and the first wish from me to the attendants. Please only use sharing links so that we don't have a lot of data and copies of data everywhere in the world and everywhere in different systems. That is my only introduction slide, because let's start with compliance. And the first big question, what is compliance? Everyone is talking about compliance, but what is compliance really? And I have a look at Wikipedia and some dictionary and some law books, and let's have a look what I found, and I have a look at what is compliance. And I find, for example, the compliance of companies with rules of conduct, laws and guidelines. We have also some information like compliance is with law through measures to preventing infringements. And we have, for example, IT compliance. This is one of the explanations and one of the things that we say compliance with code of conduct, laws and guidelines in the IT sector. So compliance is, it can be a lot of big topics like data privacy is one of the rules. The rules of conduct, it's part of the company value, for example, and also the law worldwide. We will have a look a little bit later. I have a slide and with the same world map in the background with some examples of certificates and rules around the world. And I collecting in the last 5 years more than 5,800 rules worldwide. You have to be compliant with it, and that's often more than I have to implement, for example, encryption. That's always a combination between encryption, a process. So we have more, we have a lot of more things to handle with, and compliance is often to read contracts. You have the right contracts is also part of compliance, and mostly compliance is not every time a technical topic. At the first, it's a topic of process design, of contracts, of reading contracts, writing the right contract, finding the right rule on which basement you can proceed data, for example, in the view of data processing. And all of these we can combine. And I created a slide a little bit to find a way, a little bit too fast, to find a way to define what is compliance. It's a part of cybersecurity, data security, international agreements and international contracts, law, regulation, statutes, corporate values, partnerships, and human rights together. So all of these together is compliance. In the Microsoft area, we have compliance, we have cybersecurity, we have data privacy. So we have a little bit splitting the topic, but overall under CELA, for example, under the compliance teams, and we see, and this is for me also a very good relationship from Microsoft to their customer. We see since this January that more and more Microsoft companies in the regions, in the countries, will found and founded V teams. So V teams for compliance. There are 2 or 3 people out of the edu area, out of the business area, out of the national compliance officer, national security officer. They come together to V teams to talk about compliance and summarize the knowledge at Microsoft. So this is a great example that also some companies did that and will do this. So this is one of the great examples that Microsoft handle with the topic of compliance. And if you have a look, I make a little bubble slide with all of the topics and a little bit matching with the Microsoft tools, what we can have and what we talk about when it is compliance. And yes, out of the European view, GDPR and data privacy is one of the biggest ones. But we have also e-discovery, auditing, data classification, archiving, encryption, and all of these tools. Communication compliance, one of the great new tools from Teams to Yammer we will have. And this is one what I like. And these are the topics we can talk about. And when we have to structure these topics, I have around now 5 slides, and then we go deeply correct into Microsoft Teams. But these are the basements you have to know when we start with compliance and Microsoft Teams. For example, this slide. This is one of the basic. We have 3 more basic slides, and this slide is from 2010. And when Microsoft started with BPOS, it's a pre-Office 365 tool, and it's the principle of data. So Microsoft principles are, and it's the same principle today, it's your data. If you uploaded data to Microsoft Teams, and if you upload it to the chat, if you send an email to a channel, that's your data. You control it, you own it. Microsoft is only the service provider for your data. You have to handle your data back. For example, you have to back up your data. You have to, and this is one of the questions, do you need to back up or not? We talk about later, but you have to archive it. You have to handle the data. For example, yeah, we have a look. I have a next slide of the shares of responsibility. So these are, yeah, the starting of this discussion. And what we see more and more, and that's what I like too, is we have built-in security. For example, the Fort Knox principle in SharePoint. We have privacy by design. That's, for example, that's a global admin can go to the compliance tools like e-discovery, make a search and extract data from the customers or from their users, and the users don't know anything about it. So the global admin has to give them themselves, himself, the rights to make an extract, and this will logged and audit. And there's, for example, PIM as a tool that if the global administrator giving this tool, there's an alert, and for example, there's an email with an alert to the compliance officer, and the compliance officer, oh, sorry, there's a global admin or there's an admin, they will do something that's not allowed, and they can cancel the access, for example. And also continuous compliance, this is one of my things. More and more we will see the compliance framework of Office 365, of Microsoft 365. This is an older slide, and also transfer and service operation, so that we see what Microsoft do. So yeah, I know the documentation docs.microsoft.com isn't perfect, but today I will tell you also something about more of the documentation, what you don't read in the documentation. but there's very transparent. You can talk with the engineers of Microsoft, for example, in my position as an MVP and regional director, and they tell me and also the customers what happened, for example, in cloud recording of Microsoft Teams meetings. Where is it encrypted? What is the pushing the data to the data center? In which data center the files will be handled, for example, and will be encoded for stream, and all of this information. There's more and more transparency, and with Microsoft Graph, you see a lot of these process and the service process in the background. So that's really great. And if you have a look at the model of sharing responsibilities, and I talked a little bit in the slide before, let's have a look. This location between on-prem, local, IaaS, PaaS, and software as a service. That's Office 365, and so Microsoft Teams is a part of it. And you see, okay, for example, you don't have to handle the network controls. You don't have to handle the infrastructure. That's only on Microsoft part. The physical security, you have to control it, and you can control it with ISO certification, for example, from Deloitte or from KPMG in the trust center. And you see, okay, data classification and also client and endpoint protection. That's a part of this. That is a U part, and we have also a Microsoft part, like Microsoft give you the tool, endpoint protection, to handle it and to configure it, but you have to configure it. It's not it's not a Office 365 and also Microsoft Teams, not an application that you get and you don't have to do anything. So only you have to pay. No, you have to configure it, because there are a lot of different configurations in this world. And yeah, that's not possible to do. If you have a look, for example, one more deeper for one of these certificates, it's NIST 853, and you see here's a part for Microsoft, and there's a part that the customer has to do. This is one of the graphics I created also from the Microsoft Compliance Manager. So you see if the most of the information in the Microsoft Compliance Manager. But let's have a look forward, because I'm from Europe and I'm from Germany, so data privacy is one of my favorite topics. So I collected the information about data privacy worldwide. And you see here an extract from data privacy, and a lot of these rules you see and these law are influenced by GDPR. For example, the California Consumer Privacy Act is influenced by the GDPR. The same as the General Data Privacy Law by Brazil. It's also influenced by GDPR, and all of these influencing and all of these new rules influence the Microsoft contracts. So a part of the new DPA attachment, I will talk a little bit later, is influenced by GDPR and California Privacy Act. So we have a change in the Microsoft contracts because of compliance and new compliance rules, and because of new rules worldwide. In Europe, that's a typical slide. For the rest of the world, it's not very important, but yeah, it can be very important at the end. But the Brexit will start in this moment, and at the end of the year, UK will leave the EU. They leave the EU, but at the end, the grace period is over at the end of this year, and they have to leave. I don't like it, but it is. And there's also, you have the control, for example, about the contracts. Where's the data? And you have to check, for example, if you have Microsoft Teams in London, UK region, and if you have in the UK region, you have to look at first at the contracts. Do you have data privacy EU model clauses and data privacy contracts with Europe, so that you can handle personal data from European citizen in the UK? And is there a bilateral contract between UK and Europe to handle personal data in UK? No. So you have to be care at yourself, and this is an essential thing, for example, for companies in UK at first contract, and this is a compliance issue for handling external data in Microsoft Teams. I hope you have this on your sheet and on your view and your task list for this year. If not, you can send me an email, and we try to handle it to work with the Brexit and to handle the Brexit. If you have a look a little bit deeper, it is also certificates from Microsoft Teams and also for the data center where Microsoft Teams are hosted. These are, you have to need a look at the certificate and standards, because you can't go to, for example, Amsterdam or US West and say, okay, let's have a look at the storage system. I want to audit you and want to see where is Microsoft Teams hosted. No, that's not possible. That's at the end, yes, it's possible, but you have to pay and you have to find an auditor provider or an auditor company that makes audits for you. And worldwide, we have only 4 companies they can audit a data center on this level, and that's KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, and that are the companies they audit for Microsoft. So out of my view, you don't have to pay for the same company that audits Microsoft data centers with nearly or with the same results. So, but it's possible, and if you have to know a little bit more about the code, for example, of Microsoft Teams, you can go to Brussels, or you can go to Redmond, and there's a transparency center, and you can have a look at the code. You can't wear, or you can take with you a phone or a smartwatch like an Apple Watch or like this. That's not possible. You only get a paper and a pen, and then you can go into a room and have a look at the code. It's a real-time code in this time, and a real-time code of a version. But yeah, I have a look at the code in Brussels, and I'm not a developer. I don't understand anything. So, but it's possible, and you can do. But it's not really the right thing. And the next one is the data privacy addendum. I talked a little bit before. You can have this data privacy and download this data privacy addendum at aka.ms/dpa. Since January, it's from the 8th of January. It's possible to download the attachment to the Microsoft Online terms as an additional attachment, additional to the contract between the customer and Microsoft. And you have a look at it here. This is available in these regions, for example, in EMEA, also in India, Australia, North America. And in this attachment, you will see, for example, a part for the California Consumer Act, how Microsoft has handled it. And also, this is very important, for example, for us in Europe, there's also a list which responsibility has Microsoft. For example, for licensing, for payment, and for controlling the licensing, for example, of Microsoft Teams. This is a data processor of Microsoft itself. That's not some of the customers. So there's a little bit better in the discussion area of joint controllership and the big discussions of data privacy and joint controllership. So that's better, a little bit better than before. But yeah, you have to check and make an audit a little bit if you need this contract. If you have an EA, enterprise agreement closed, or MPSA or CSP about Microsoft Office 365 included with Teams in the last month, this attachment is automatically a part of your contract. So have a look at your contracts. I talked with you about different certificates and Microsoft compliance worldwide. Here is, I think a lot of people want to make a screenshot. Here's an overview about the different certifications, also regulatory. I see some of this is only in German. So here's Germany and India and UK and Netherlands, China, Australia. We have also USA, Argentina, Canada. It's also a part of the certifications I collected, and also the requirements I collected. So you have a look, for example, in the US, and you see it's HIPAA certificated, and Microsoft Teams. This is one of the great things, is a part of the core tools of Office 365. So for Microsoft Teams, 89% of these certificates, like ISO certificates for the data center, but also SOC certificates, SOC 2, is also responsible for Microsoft Teams. So you can have a look at the Trust Center, and there's a table, and then you see Microsoft Teams, and you see Microsoft Teams, for example, is eligible and available with these certificates. And this is really great because Microsoft Teams is a core tool like SharePoint Online and Exchange Online. But not everything in Microsoft Teams, but this is a little surprise. We will have a clear view a little bit later. If you have a look, and I want to show it to you, is the whole security reference. This is 1 year old, but this is security reference at the basement of defining security and defining organizational measures, for example. No, I don't want to talk about everything. We have a lot of sessions here that talk about different things, for example, Intune or Azure Sentinel. I saw a lot of sessions, so please have a look there. That is only an overview, and Microsoft Teams is a part of it. The same, the Microsoft Information Protection solution with Sentinel and also with sensitivity labeling. This is also part of Microsoft Teams. I will have also a little surprise. This is in the next step. So 20 minutes about basic information, a lot of basic information, but this is also a big part of the compliance topic, to have the contracts, to have the right ISO certifications, to have the right certifications, to have the right certifications worldwide, to know, for example, which retention policy you have to configure in USA, you have to configure in Brazil, you have to configure in Australia. So you have, for example, I make a matrix last week for retention policies, and I have around 600 different retention policies I have to configure for different countries and different regulation about retention. So, for example, in Germany, we have to collect 10 years, but in USA, you want to delete after 1 year. And so that's interesting discussions and decision at the end, what you have to do. So first steps, I talk a little bit too much, but first steps, if you don't have the metrics like me, it's your chance to get at first the compliance manager. There you have to choose, for example, GDPR out of a European view, or NIST I show you on another slide, or HIPAA out of the health sector, and then you see a lot of requirements you have to do, and also Microsoft have to do, and this is a good start, and then good start to talk about compliance and to see the requirements and action items. 2 hints. First one, these lists and action item lists are not the end. So every month, Microsoft added requirements. So, for example, you see here on this slide 388 of 568 of GDPR. 3 months before, we have only 500. Now we have 568, or if I have a look now in this moment, maybe we have 600. And this is one way, so that's not the end, it's only a process. It's a process. So remember my second slide. And the next one is Microsoft Managed Actions. That is out of Microsoft view. So if there is 48 or 48 and Microsoft have everything done, no, that's not right, because there are also more requirements Microsoft maybe don't fulfill in some countries, or maybe don't fulfill out of the knowledge from some national regulations or of the newest judgment, for example, in France or like this. But so when you know these two things, you can handle it very awesome. And the next 2 things where you find information also about Microsoft Teams, the security paper of Microsoft Teams, and also some interesting information, for example, about the cloud recording and what happened and how it is encrypted, and which data center the data will be proceed and will be handled of Microsoft Teams. Please have a look at the compliance portal, the Microsoft Service Trust portal, and there's a compliance manager and compliance portal. You see on the right side, audit and have a step deeper. So the URL is aka.ms/stp. And if you have a look deeper, and now that is for me as a part of my heart, I'm a lawyer, I love all of these documents. So you have all of these documents here, and you see here, for example, the ISO certificates for Office 365. This is included of Microsoft Teams, and the different certificates for the world and what Microsoft have included, the SOC reports. And here, one of the big hint is, please, if you have the certificates, only download it, storage on your device, and making alerts. So with the alert, you get the news documents via email, and don't print it out. I printed out for one of the customers. I printed out 5 of these boxes with 2,500 papers in one of these boxes, and so 5 of these boxes, and I printed 3 days. So don't do it. What is more efficient, and what was one of my favorite things, go to the compliance into the security center, and don't use the old link. I hope most of your tenants will be. I think I need a little bit more light so you see me a little bit better. Don't go to protection. Because yeah, that's the old one. The old one is we have to Microsoft combine all of these features, security and compliance, but now we have a split of both. For example, communication compliance you find on the left side, but we have also tools you find in both centers, like retention you find in security center under the navigation point classification and retention, and in the compliance center you find data classification and information governance, which is the same label. So you have 2 options, for example, for retention to handle it. One more to the Microsoft partners outside. You have time to the 16th of June to make a Microsoft 365 assessment with your customer. Microsoft will fund 2 to 3 days for your customer, and but you have to be a fast track partner and a managed partner, and then you can nominate your customers, and Microsoft will pay for Microsoft 365 assessment. It's not an assessment only for Microsoft Teams, but it's an assessment, for example, for remote worker. This is really awesome in this time of COVID crisis. That's a big part is Microsoft Teams, how to use Microsoft Teams in a compliant way, and they are checklisted included. This is a hint for Microsoft partner, and if you are a customer, go to your Microsoft partner and say, I need this. I need these information, this PowerPoint presentation, to have a more deeper look in Microsoft Teams and to use Microsoft Teams in a compliant way. So this hint, the process, I think it's very interesting for you how I choose, or which way I go and which steps I choose to be compliant with Microsoft Teams. And for me, I choose at first a risk assessment. So what is a risk? I'll lose data. Where we have a risk, for example, when we have a loss of information, how we use, for example, IP and IP addresses, or all of these sensitivity data in your data center. This is the typical thing what the IT department did. I hope they did it. So IT risk, assess of risk, and IT risk assessment a little bit, and then classify data. If you don't do it, please classify your data. It's easy. It's very easy. You don't need to encrypt the data, but please classify your data. If you don't want to handle all of this, please choose only one, for example, class, and classify all your data with this. And you have a look into the audit control, have a look in the dashboard, and you see where's your data, what happened with your data, all of this. The best thing is with E5, you can automatically deploy the classified and also the retention, all of this. So this is an important thing if you have E5. If not, you can handle it, for example, also with Flow, to make a folder, for example, with one class, and also the content with one class. Then access control, this is a part of Zero Trust, for example, with conditional access. So that's, for example, I'm very happy, full conditional access is a part of Microsoft 365 business premium today from 21 of April. This is one of my big wishes for the KMU and the middle market, so they can use conditional access. And there's a very awesome news today. If you use Microsoft Teams and you have the SharePoint sites, and you said, okay, in this SharePoint site there are sensitivity data, there are personal data, and I need more control. As is possible from next month, and today is it in preview, you can make a conditional access not only for SharePoint itself, you can make it to a SharePoint site, and you combine it with terms of use. So this is one of my next hints. Please use conditional access, and please use conditional access for single SharePoint sites and combine it with terms of use. So terms of use, you have the contracts, and with conditional access, for example, you have MFA control for the special data in it. And at the end, compliant with the regulations React. So React, all of this. So I talked a little bit too much about the site, but this is risk management. I told you start with the compliance manager, service trust portal, encryption, access management, monitoring, and all of this. And they have a next good hint for the access management. From the build, they announced the control of external or the new external portal. And for access management, there's a very good new feature. I activated at all of my customers and said, please activate it. And I activate also for my tenants and for my tenants of the company. There's an access control. And you can say, for example, all external, please, the Raphael, Mr. Koellner and Mr. Müller and Mr. Schweitzer have to control every year every external account. And then you get a list, an email, and you click on it and you get a list. So I'm the controller, I get a list with all of the external guests in your tenant. And I can say, okay, this guest, okay, this guest, no, I have to block it. And then you have a control part. What I wish here is a control part of every access right of the guest, not only the guest. So, but this will be a next step in the roadmap. So we have a automatically control system in access management. So that's what I like. And if we have all of this information down to Microsoft Teams, we have these 5 areas: identity and access. I told you, please use all of the new features or the most of the new features, and also information protection, that's sensitivity labeling, then discover and respond, that's what you can do automatically if you have retention policies and sensitivity policies, for example, labeling and unified labeling. And also you can use, for example, Microsoft Cloud App Security to have a look and identify and discover and respond with policies and with it. And if you have, for example, sensitivity labeling, data governance is only a thing that you can check, because with information protection, retention, you have governance from Microsoft Teams included, and you have governance for your data. So you have more steps about it. So that's a really great thing. You don't need PowerShell to say no external guests in my teams. Use sensitive labeling, and it's included. It's a part of a label that no one can. You label your teams, and when you label your teams, you can define that with this label, maybe it's internal, no one from external can join the team. So that's governance of teams and governance of data lifecycle included only in one policy. And that's for me, it's one of the greatest things that we have sensitive labeling GA. The Teams features are in preview today. They are not GA, so in general available, but it will be a lot in the next times also general available. The team, the structure of a team when I work with a customer, and I work also in my company. BDO is also an auditor company like PwC and KPMG. So we are a regulated company, and we have high compliance rules. So we're talking with the stakeholder, with the IT department, with special departments. We have a look at the data privacy officer for the working councils. Okay, this is special for Europe, for France and Germany, for example. We talk with a Microsoft partner. They implemented the different services with the IT security officer or team. And one of the parts you have to look at is corporate communications. Please talk with corporate communications to implement a good compliance value in your company. And also, if you have an issue, you can have to talk with corporate communications and communications about how to talk to your customers and to the world about a breach, and then talk with your external partners. And yeah, partners, and one of these things you want to love and want to talk with and talk a lot about. Communication is one of the main things. If you have matching rules, I talk about, you have a look at the compliance manager, and you can have a look in the trust portal. And here you see, for example, an example of the matching the rules with Microsoft tools and what Microsoft can do. So you don't need to create or make a discovery how to use it. Please have a look. There are a lot of material that you can react with Microsoft Teams and can be compliant to use it. What I do, or what I did, is I create my own tool with V2. You can do it also with an Excel sheet. You can extract the information from the compliance manager and then build an Excel sheet with a little dashboard. That's also possible, but I use the Azure Web App with SharePoint lists, Microsoft Power Apps, and Microsoft Graph and Audit informations and Azure functions. And at the end, I have a portal with a dashboard where we collect all of the information worldwide and matching this with the Microsoft information, and then with the Microsoft tools and Microsoft configuration, and then creating tasks in Planner, so we have a project and can make it. Last thing, and a little bit advertising, yes, that's also possible, compliance as a service. I created in my team as also a hint for other Microsoft partners. I have a team created out of IT specialists, lawyers, cybersecurity specialists, like SOC Center in Tel Aviv, and with Azure Sentinel of this. And we have 1,650 locations worldwide. And with them, we have compliance as a service for the customers. So with different models, from notification to lawyers to write a paper about the new law, about the new judgments and the new decisions, and we have recommendations out of it. So from notifications from Microsoft and all of the law stuff, we created recommendations, and we create trainings and adoption of these new rules, and we can make configuration. So that's at the end. If you have interest, send me an email and we can talk about it. So I have 15 minutes, so 10 minutes more for more information. I go a little bit forward, a little bit faster. I created a baseline configuration for Microsoft Teams. At the first, I collect all of the recommendations of Microsoft. We have a lot of recommendations I have in my link list. For example, Microsoft Teams and data privacy. There's a website in the documentation. Information protection, zero trust, and the recommended compliance centers as an example. And additional my metrics. For example, you need some end contracts, additional contracts, for example, for people and groups like lawyers or doctors in the health sector. You can have additional contracts with Microsoft in the combination to Teams that they can work with it, and that is a part of that we have to do. And also, for example, delete the feedback button. This is also a little compliance issue that's, yeah, it's better to delete it. And also security and compliance overview, but I will skip it because I have two overview slides, and these are the slides everyone want to have and want to make a screenshot. So if you have a look at Teams, and we know now the baseline, we know the contracts, we have all of this, but we have a look deeper to Teams. I told you Microsoft Teams is a core tool, and Microsoft Teams has a lot of ISO certificates. And then I told you, okay, a little bit later, I will talk about not everything of Teams. Yes, there's a part that don't have these certificates and don't have everything. So the best thing is main tools. Main tools in the background. So Microsoft Teams a bunch of a lot of tools. So main is Exchange, SharePoint, Azure AD. For these tools, the contracts are fine. We have the certifications, we have DPI attachment, we have all of this. That's fine in the first way. That's fine. Then we have Microsoft apps and features. They are hosted mostly in Azure. and we have but we have the general data privacy terms. We have no OSTs and no DPA. For example, for Shift is now a main tool, but we have new tools like the new Task app, or we have new Microsoft features they included into Microsoft Teams in the last month. For example, the Kaisala parts, they will be included in Teams. They are currently under only general data privacy, so we have a look. That is the first step. You have a look at it, make a deeper risk management. Can we use it? Yes or no. If you have the contracts and if it's a compliance basement, okay, that's fine. We can use it. What is more critical are the next two things. I start with the individual apps at the background at the bottom. If you go to a Microsoft partner and said, okay, please create me an individual app, for example, Power App or Web App, Bot for Microsoft Team, you have a look at it. Most of the third-party vendors using Google Cloud, AWS, Alibaba Cloud, and all of this. Sometimes it is cheaper, or they work every time with this cloud and are familiar with it. But it is very difficult because if you use, for example, Alibaba, Google Cloud, or all of this, you have a different provider. And with this provider, you need all of the contracts you have with Microsoft also with this provider. And you need this with this provider and with your individual partner. So with your Microsoft partner, you need everything, all of these contracts, and you need also risk management. Is it ISO certificated? What the partner did? Is it certificated for HIPAA? And all of these things. And the individual apps, no, are not a part of certificate. And the certificate is very expensive. So you have all of these rules with the individual apps. It's possible, but it's it's a risk to do it, but it's possible. That's fine. What is a highly risk are the third-party things. For example, have a look at the Secretary app, at the Secretary bot in the Microsoft App Store. That is a WordPress website. No Impress, no data privacy, no information about the company, no address of the company, no name of the people of the company. You don't know in which data center the Secretary bot will host it. Maybe it is a Microsoft bot framework or Google framework, or is it a self bot, or is it a manually thing, or whatever? You don't know. No information, and that's 80% of the third-party apps are on high risk. That's because of this situation. Microsoft added a certificate, so self-certificate and a Microsoft certificate to the third-party applications. You find it in the Microsoft Admin Center, and this is one of the first steps. The next hint, I want to recognize you, and I want to wish that you do it. Go to the Microsoft Center in the Admin Center, have a look at the certificate, kick all of the apps out. They don't have a Microsoft certificate. If they have a Microsoft certificate like Adobe Reader or Adobe Sign In, please have a look at the app. If you want to have a more detailed view, you can go to Microsoft MCAS. There are also all of the testing information, and the testing information are also in the Microsoft documentation. So that's very important. Next important slide. That everyone make a screenshot. Yeah, I know. It's a compliance question about Microsoft Teams. I don't want to tell about all of these questions, but for example, we have the files, and this is the easiest one to explain. You have files, and if you work with files in an external tenant with Microsoft Teams, you don't have access to the file when the admin or your partner said, okay, delete the access to Microsoft Teams and to my team in my tenant. You don't have access. The tools, eDiscovery, DLP, and all of these tools are not cross-tenant, so they only work in your tenant. So that's my recommendation. And the next hint, please only use in your tenant with your files in your labeling system. It don't work cross-tenant. And if you have to work cross-tenant with Microsoft Teams, please make backups. Every day, every week, if it's manually, or use a tool, make a backup of the files you work in not in your tenant, in the tenant of another company, of another guy, because they can delete the access in this moment, like I snipping with my fingers in the same way, and nothing of your tools will work. The only tool in the thing they work is sensitivity labeling. if you label a file and this file will be handled in another area, in another tenant, that's always your access. And for example, you kill the access for the external partner. You can put the external partner in your labeling system. For example, when you work a lot of together, it's a good part to add them to your file system, to your labeling system. And when the partner kick you out of the team, kick them out of the labeling system. And then, for example, you have a label with only 5 days online access, you can kick it out, and it's a guarantee that they can open the file and they can't handle the file. You can't delete it, but you can say that they don't have access. So these are the question of ownership of files. And this is more important when you work with Microsoft Teams. So that's why I'm talking only use sharing links. And the file is in your environment, in your SharePoint, in your OneDrive. Don't copy, don't send it out via email. It's only the ownership of the file must be you and in your tenant. Yeah. So the other discussions around in this time, I can talk 1 hour about all of the questions. If, for example, we have, for example, in chats, are chats a part of business letters? Yes. In Europe, yes. In US, maybe. Morely to yes. It's a part, for example, of California, yes. In Washington, yes. In Alabama, no. So you have a look where the business letter and business letter are, for example, very important for cases and matters. Often in the USA, you have to handle out all of these business letters to your counterpart, to your enemy in the process, in the legal process, and that's also for the chats. Where is Microsoft Teams stored? That's everyone knows. So a little bit skipping also in the time you see where the data is stored, and I talked to you a little bit. That's one of the last points I will show to you is the part of the cloud recording, for example. That's not a part of documentation. I checked before my session. I hope tomorrow or like this, I push it with GitHub. It will be part of the documentation. So what happened when you recorded a live event like this or a Microsoft Teams meeting, the recording live stream will be going to the next Azure data center, to the blob storage. You see it here. And in 24 hours, it will go to your data center where you have your stream default data center. And one of the important things is which data center. It's not the data center nearby you. It's every time the default data center. So I'm in the US, my default center is in Europe. All of the recording will be streamed via the Microsoft network to my default data center. For me is Dublin, stream to Dublin. And in this data center, in the Azure Blob Storage, in this data center, the media service will be encrypted and will be also decoded and then sent to stream in the same data center. So the short way, stream in the default location, it's for me is also Europe and Dublin, and then with CD network, I can have a view at the recording. One more additional information, one of the last additional information, the recording on your device, they packing it in a PM4 stream, and it's an encrypted stream to the data center. So this is the information. I hope, hopefully, they will be added to the documentation, and these are the typical ones from my customer. Cloud recording is what I'll tell you. Transcription is also one, and also transcription in different languages, where data processor, external view of presence, that's a data privacy configuration in Skype for Business. It will become also on Microsoft Teams, and the political question, data cloud, the Cloud Act of the use A, are the typical ones. And the last thing, you can make a matching of these tools. For example, here's an example of Edu. If you have a school with Microsoft Teams, you can use the Exchange online message policies in all licensing. And with this messaging policies, you can say only the students can chat, which is other internally, and also can send emails internally. That is one of the important things. So to be compliant in the edu area. Last 2-3 slides, I compare for you the solutions. and also evaluate, proact, and react. And I also make the same thing for pre-active and after an accident. So you have tools for Microsoft Teams, and there are tools out of Office 365 you can use for Microsoft Teams. So before something happened, and you have active when something happened, and after it, like e-discovery, when something happened. And last thing, and my last slide here, is if you have a look, and I make a lot of screenshots, if you have a look at Microsoft Teams, and I tell about sensitivity labeling, and here you see on the left side to create a team, and you see, for example, internal, and there's internal private only, and then I choose internal, and then the teams must be, the sensitive must be private. So you see I can only create a private team, and if I have a look at this team, these private labeling and classification goes to the public channels and goes to the private channels too, and goes to the, and this is in German, sorry, that goes to the document, and it can be automatically also to the document. So you have the retention policy, and for example, is data privacy, you have also the labeling to your document. So you have everything in Microsoft Teams. And the last screenshot, you want to know, yes, here's the best practice baseline from tooling you need for Microsoft Teams, from Microsoft Teams MDM, mobile device management, so manage the device where Teams on it, and the app management, use security policies via Intune for Teams, and use sensitivity labeling, and all of these tools to make Microsoft Teams compliant. And now that is definitely my last slide. Here's a strategy about 90 days where you can make your Microsoft Teams environment compliant before the start, or if you start now with Microsoft Teams, you need around 90 days. So Microsoft Teams is compliant at the end. And now I will end and skip the last 2 slides. Only some links at the end, and thank you very much. And I'm at the end, and I don't want to be angry with the next speaker, and I know there are a lot of
fortunately for you, Koellner, you are at the end of the what's called the block. There's going to be a keynote that's coming up in a few minutes, so people will be going to the other rooms. So that is the issue. We're not being kicked out. So you only have one question on the list, and it said, would you not suggest use your shared documents via OneDrive than via your hard drive? I think I can almost answer that question, right?
Yeah, I think it's better via OneDrive.
Yes, everybody, please do not share your hard drive to anybody.
Yeah. Ralph, you are perfect. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the session.
I did. I actually enjoyed it because this is actually my topic that I actually live and breathe every day. So I love it.
Yeah. So
lucky me. All right, folks. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask and send me an email.
Yes, follow up on the social media. You will find him there.